Hi everyone, we welcome you all to this week Tech Tuesday webinar on what's new in Axon Data Governance 7.3 onwards. Today's speaker is Pradeep Jain, who's a Senior Product Manager. Before we start the session, let's go through some of the housekeeping tips. The webinar is for 1 hour that includes 15 minutes Q&A. You can post your queries in Q&A box which will be answered at the end of the presentation. All participants will be muted during the presentation. The session will be recorded and it will be available on our InfoSupport YouTube channel and Success Portal where you'll be able to download the slide deck. Please feel free to submit your suggestion or feedback for this session in the post-webinar survey. The Success Portal is a micro-learning platform that offers free, unlimited learning to all the registered users. This feature-rich platform helps you learn and adopt to Informatica products better. The following are for important links that you can go over later. This will help you in your product adoption journey with Informatica. Over to you, Pradeep. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for folks joining in from different parts of the globe. Before we start, a quick safe harbor. Information being provided here is informational purpose only. Statements made here are basically from the information currently available and it is subjected to change. Here's a quick look at the release timelines of key releases which we had in the past. That is what we are going to cover in today's session of what's new, what are the features that came up in each of these releases in the last 1 year. 7.3.0 was a major release, HF release. It was available since June 17, 2022. Then we had a service pack release, which is a minor release, 7.3.01 in September 23rd. Recent, we had a major release, 7.3.1, which came in 10 days back on Jan 20th. HF releases have the schema changes. It supports or upgraded as a full-fledged installer. Service pack releases are minor releases, which will be having only a EBS installer kind of a thing, which you can apply and roll back. Going forward in 2023, we also have releases planned for May, which is a SP release, 7.3.11, and in September, we are planning for 7.3.2 HF release, which is a major release. Each of our Axon releases are focused on 4 areas. To start with the customer critical features, which help them in their governance, success, or adoption. And also it helps in their expansion of their data governance journeys. We also focus on our core features. It could be the change requests, the workflows, the Unison, and the maps. So these are the core features. We extend them to provide more information or more ease of use for end users. Along with that, we also focus on our end-to-end cross-product integration, wherein Axon integrates with EDC, data privacy management, and data quality tools. Each of these Informatica tools support news sources, and in order to onboard those assets, we extend our capability on the end-to-end integration as well. A quick snapshot about the 3 releases which we are going to talk about today. The layout is that you can see the engaging section, which covers about the end user information which they use day in and day out, how it is going to enhance their capabilities. In the middle section, you can see about the integration with EDC, data quality, or even the third-party tools like LDAP and other things. And on the rightmost column, you can see the outcomes where admin configured administrators can enable some of the features to get information out of the tool. Let's start with Axon 7.3.0. 7.3.0 had a bunch of new capabilities. It was a major release after a long gap of 1 year. So we had the 7.2, and after that, the next major release was 7.3.0. In 7.3.0, we brought up the trend and usage statistics information. This introduced a new microservice called as event monitoring microservice. It captured usage statistics, search behaviors, and change requests which have been logged on the assets which are governed. We also improved our duplicate detection mechanism. We updated the algorithm there, and also the Axon EDC integration, where it came up with a bunch of new resources and for DQ rule automation as well, supporting new resources like Snowflake or Azure Data Warehouse. Let's cover in detail about each of these topics, and I'll be sharing you some of the screenshots and as a part of the demo as well. To start with the configurable notifications for user actions in the change request or the workflow actions, which is coming up. Previous to 7.3, all the actions which have been performed and a change request or workflow was coming in the notification section. It used to create a lot of noise, and the user who has to perform an action, he might have missed that particular notification or it could go unnoticeable. In order to address that, we came up with a configuration driven from the admin panel, wherein you can set whether you want to notify all the actions which have been performed or a specific actions like user which has to perform only those notifications to be displayed. With respect to that, if there is only a specific focus related notifications enabled, then they will see the change request created or started or completed along with the workflow call to action if they have to perform some actions and if they have been mentioned in the comments. So this is an admin panel driven configuration. You can see the differences on the left hand side and the right hand side, where in left hand side you have all the notifications. You can observe that workflow step completed, and also there is a discussion added. These things are missing on the right hand side. In the right hand side, you have something specific like you have been mentioned or a workflow call to action where you have to perform some actions there. And these are the notification changes which have come in 7.3.0. Then we introduced the duplicate detection enhancement or the change in the algorithm. Earlier, we used to use a SoundX algorithm, which was not giving us the right warnings or the alerts when there is a duplicate objects. Now, with the fuzziness included, what we can do is we get the warnings whenever there is a fuzziness within the word or across the words. Example, date of birth and a birth date. These are the glossary terms which have been defined. This gives a warning that similar object already existing in the system. Do you want to really create a duplicate of it or a new object, or can you reuse them? That is one aspect. And when you look at the glossary, we also consider the alias names along with the object name. Earlier, this was not considered, alias name was not considered. Then we also have the duplicate detection irrespective of the parent and child combination. Previously, we had the parent and child combination to detect the duplicate. Now we have taken it out so that if it is present across the domain, across an enterprise where you are doing an expansion of it, so you can get a notification that similar or the warnings to avoid duplicates in the system. It also supports the UTF-8 characters while detecting the duplicates. Then moving on to the workflow and change request enhancements. Any object which is undergoing a stakeholder changes, and it also has a workflow in progress, those stakeholders which have been added newly can participate in the pending workflow steps there. So this is a new addition which we have done. And then we also have the super admin who can unlock an object if there is a stakeholder who has been assigned a task and he has left the company or his status is set to delete it. A super admin can go and unlock that object. The object can be unlocked only for one time. So once there is a next action being performed, the object goes back into the lock state. This avoids a lot of change requests to be cancelled and to restart that process. So that is the reason we have introduced them. Then we also have the change request review in the data set for attributes, which is having a consolidated view, and it gives all the details for a single attribute. Earlier it used to give each field level information. Now one attribute, all the fields in that attribute are captured in a single screen. Then we move on to the improvements on the Unison maps and the object histories. In Unison, for attribute, we started bringing in the business logic field as well. The business logic field was not part of the columns to be displayed or even at the filtering criteria. we introduced both to be available at the filter and as well as the display. And it also supports the maps supports the character wide of 30 more than 30 characters, which we had a limit. So what we do is we give a identification with 3 dots, and if you hover on those objects, the complete name will be displayed. Also, the system interface, which was displayed by default earlier, right? Now we have made it as disabled. Only on demand, if they toggle on that particular switch, then only they will be able to see the system interface name, which could reduce the map loading into a compact one initially. As the user requires, it can be expanded. We also have the object history, wherein we are capturing the technical assets linking at the data set and the system level. And we also have the audit history captured for the stakeholders, addition, deletion, or the updates. These were missing in the previous releases of 7.2x. So from 7.3 onwards, we capture these in the audit history of data set and system, and also for other facets for stakeholder purposes. A new microservice, which I mentioned earlier, that is the event monitoring microservice that helps in capturing the trend and usage statistics of how Axon application or the governance tool is used in your enterprise, how many people are using it, how they are using it, what is the involvement of the users. And also, if somebody comes in new to the system, they know what are all the frequently searched objects, or what is the top 5 searched assets, which are the accessed assets. So all these statistics, which gives you a clear picture how your application is being used. So we have introduced the trend and usage statistics there. This has a mat view table created within the PostgreSDB, and to view them in your choice of reporting tools, namely like Power BI or a Tableau or anything, you can directly connect to the PostgreSDB, and you can view those tables which have each of the reporting statistics there. It also captures the number of change requests which have been created. And it also captures at the user profile level, like in what are all the objects used searched by super admins, what are all the objects searched by a web user. And also you can distinguish based on the period of time. We have the data of last 6 months, but you can filter it out on based on the last 1 month who was done, or the previous month, what are the objects which have been accessed in the application, how many change requests were created on that, number of search hits which have been performed. I'll walk you through about some of the screenshots or how the reporting structure looks like when we connected with our Power BI internal reporting tool. So you can use any of your reporting tools to get this graphical representation. You can see the most active users in the last 180 days who have been contributing there, how many change requests have been created by different users, the CR trend, the change request trend, how it is going on since the last 1 month or 2 months of the time window. You can use the filters to change the date window, and you can move around with that. You can also see some of the systems which have been used. It has how many data sets, what are the search related actions. And finally, you can see some of them like the trend of it, how many users logged in with respect to the quick searches which have been done, searches done by last 180 days. So bunch of information, quite detailed. You can use it as per your requirement, or you can use the reporting tools to present to your IT how the application is being used. Next, moving ahead, we had integration with the cloud Jira as well. Earlier, we had only the ServiceNow integration with respect to the ITSM. Now we have extended that support to the Jira, and it is only for Jira, which is a hosted instance or the cloud instance. You can create a bug or a task type. So this can be configured in the change request system in admin panel, wherein it creates a ticket on your Jira instance whenever there is a change request created in Axon, and it goes through its own life cycle in your Jira system. Once it is completed, it comes back to the Axon to give an update. So all those synchronization between the service now what we had earlier, the same is available with Jira as well. So just a couple of screenshots how it can be done, where you're going to give those information. We have introduced a couple of new fields for that configuration, namely the server login token. When it is a cloud-based, you use the token-based authentications along with the username. So server login token is there. You can specify the project in the Jira and also the issue type. Currently, it is a bug or a subtask or whatever it could be. It is a configurable value there. Some detailed steps on how it can be done on the Jira side as well. You have to log into your cloud hosted instance of Jira. You need to get an API token. That is where you need to pass on in the admin panel. And you also need to give the project codes which you are going to use. And then these information can also be mapped using a JSON. Each of the fields, custom fields, what you have, like a description or the label or the priority, whatever you have, it can be configured as a JSON entry, a key value pair. And once you create a change request in Axon, automatically the Axon connects to the configured Jira and it creates a ticket. Either it could be a bug or a bug subtask. And that reference to the external ticket is captured in the change request of Axon. And your user need not perform any of those workflow steps here. There is no workflow to be associated. It is all taken from your ITSM tools, the Jira tool. Yeah. Next, we'll look at the Kubernetes enhancements on the deployment side. We came up with the auto scaling and also support of HA in 7.3. Each of the containers run on a specific application image there, and we wanted to bring in the horizontal scaling wherein the Postgres DB or the RabbitMQ, which can be spawned on multiple pods. So we have the stateful set of services which can be run on multiple pods, as I mentioned. It also supports the upgrade capability. If you have a Kubernetes deployment on the 7.2x, which we initially started, you have the upgrade capability as well. No need of going with a fresh deployment. You can go with the upgrade. A quick look at how the framework looks like. You can see here the Postgres or the OrientDB or the RabbitMQ, which are the stateful services which are deployed on multiple pods. So if there is one pod going down, the other comes up immediately. That is how the HA is achieved. Rest of the microservices need not be functional for the entire application to be up and running. Also, when you are looking at the scaling, wherein you have more users have started using it or the consumption is more, you can increase the number of pods on these stateful services so that it supports auto scaling there. To give a HA deployment design, each of those 4 microservices or the Postgres DB that has to be stateful. You can have minimum of 2 pods for that. The rest of the 12 Axon microservices is a stateless deployment. It uses single pod for each microservices. One container will run the Axon services, and then all the K8s resources will be created within the namespace what you are going to do. We do have the documentation for this. You can go through them in detail. You can reach out to the support if there is any requirement on that. Customer side prerequisites, we supported AWS as well and the on-prem. There is a license file, you need to download them, and the storage account details needs to create a shared volume on the AWS as well. These are some of the prerequisites which are more technical in details. As you start using them, you can refer to the guide. We have specific guide for K8s deployment alone. In 7.3.0, we also came up with the externalization support, wherein all the bulk upload templates have the fields appropriately to the language which has been chosen in the UI. Earlier, we used to have only the Axon UI, which has been externalized. From 7.3.0 onward, we have the bulk upload templates, also the fields which are present in the bulk upload template. These are externalized so that you can use them based on the choice of language, and that will be easy for use. Also, the walk me's, whatever we had in the application, it was not supporting Japanese characters. Now we have the Japanese language translation as well for all the walk me's. So this was a quick view of the high details of the 730 feature. Let's look into some what was there in 7301. 7301 came up in September, as I was mentioning. So in September release, it is a minor release. Even though it was a minor release which did not have a schema change, we had a feature pack release there. When we look at the some of the core or the major capabilities was looking at the duplicate or stopping the duplicate relationships or capability tag at different Axon object within the Axon objects as a rich text fields. We also came up with the integration with ServiceNow for additional ticket types. There were performance improvement, a major thing with respect to Axon EDC, wherein the onboarding process used to take more than 6 days or 7 days. We reduced it and we came up with a job to be completed within a day. So let's look at how each of these features are available. So the change request and the workflow improvements, which we're going to talk about, is on the even without assigning a workflow, a change request can be completed or that can be marked as complete right now. Earlier, this was not the case. The complete button was not available unless until you associate a workflow. This used to cause a lot of problems wherein customers wanted to uh, close the change requests which were created only for the request for informational purposes only. If they wanted some information that can be provided within a single step, they don't need a workflow to be assigned. And that point, they do provide the information, but they have to go through that. So in a workflow, keep all those things done just for the process sake. So now we have given an option there. Any change request can be marked as completed if it is in the pending start. There is a subjected to conditions of providing analysis and resolution fields. These two fields are mandatory required. If they provide this information, it can be marked as completed without the workflow assignment. Moving on, we had a mandatory approval or the default change request, which we call it as. It was applicable only for web users. So any web users making a change on an Axon object, it used to create a change request, assign a workflow, and it used to go through the approval process. Now this can be extended for any changes done by admin and super admin users as well. When this is enabled, it makes sure all your governance assets are available or it is secured for any accidental changes even by admin or super admin users. So this has been introduced there, and once this is enabled, all the super admin changes goes through the approval process as defined in the admin panel. Next, we also have the ServiceNow integration enhancement, as I was talking about. This includes the support of problem and change request ticket type in ServiceNow. Earlier, we used to support only the incident. Now we support additional ticket types as well. And also, if you have the custom ticket types in ServiceNow, we also have a KB article where it is from the backend configurations, you can update them. So that reflects in the UI. So you can start using your custom ticket types of ServiceNow into the Axon directly. Moving ahead, we have the duplicate relationships which are not allowed. In 7.3, we talked about the duplicate check for the objects. Now, we are not allowing the relationships to be duplicate at all. We are not giving any warning, but we are just throwing an error that there is a relationship which is already present if you are trying to do a duplicate relationship. This is applicable both for the UI as well as the bulk of. What helps with this is if you wanted to make any changes going forward, if you have the duplicates are already present, if you want to update or delete, it used to cause a lot of ambiguities. The system was not ready for taking it up. So we are not allowing the duplicates based on three conditions: source, target, and the relationship type. These three combinations together is considered as a unique relationship. If you have the same source and same target with a different relationship type, it is considered as a different altogether. So and this avoids a lot of other cleanup activities or the maintenance, which is going to come up in the late part of it. So duplicate relationships are no longer allowed in the system from 7301. You also have the capability to tag Axon objects. Say, for example, you are going to mention any process or a policy in a glossary or data set. Earlier, you need to create a impact of a relationship there and you need to mention them. Now, in the rich text fields of any Facet objects, you can go in and you can it creates an hyperlink and you can choose that which is the object as well. So you need to follow the keyword, which is the hash, followed by the Facet name. You can see in the screenshot there, once you provide a process, colon, and if you just wait for a couple of seconds there, not even a second, I would say, you get a list of processes which are available in the system. It is a drop-down list. You can pick them. And if you have a duplicate name as well, we have the IDs which are mentioned on the right-hand side within the braces. So this allows users to mention this in their rich text format description. And the person who is going in to read those information, he can see that there is a hyperlink. Clicking on them, it directly takes them to that particular process. Either it could be from a glossary, it could be from a change request. If you are working on a change request, you wanted to mention something about an impact object, you can do that. So this is a very useful feature which can be used instead of those relationships to be set up every time. You still have to do it for the impact ones, but this is for the reference objects. Then we also had the bulk migration enhancements, wherein the bulk migration process, which was introduced in 7.2.2, did not have the intra-facet relationships earlier. That means to say, if you had an attribute X attribute relationship, this was missed, or even process X process, glossary X glossary. These were the intra-facet relationships which are not available. Now with the bulk migrate option, these files are all included as part of the process there. Additional to the trend and usage statistics, what we introduced in 7.3, in 7.3.0.1, we increased its scope to even include the searches done by REST API, because there are many customers who use the query APIs to retrieve the information from the application. It was not captured initially. So now the searches done by REST API is also part of the stack. Also the Zap search, which is a quick search, right? You select a particular row in the Unison grid and click on that search. You not necessarily type in any of the search term into the text box. So that is also captured in the statistics now. And also it is over a period of time, if you want to bring in those report, you have the option of filtering them. So you want 180 days or the 130 days or even the last 60 days of data, you can bring that at the facet level, each of the facet level, and at the individual user level as well. Moving ahead, we had email notification enhancement. This included some of the emails like daily digest emails or the instant emails which we used to get earlier. The information was probably missing some of them. The key information, all the links were not directly taking through the required screens in the application. Now we have those rectified. So for example, when the dashboard is shared with a user, there is a link which is provided. Clicking on that link takes them directly to the dashboard, which is made available. If the user is not having that access, it has been revoked, he gets appropriate messages that the dashboard permissions have been revoked. You need to contact the affected person. Along with that, the daily digest email notifications, wherein if you're following an object, or if you're being part of the stakeholdership, if you have some of the pending workflows, there are a bunch of changes there. You can see the new look and feel of it, more crisp, more precise. Left-hand side, you can see the older version, which is before 7301, wherein we had the table, which is the headers were not clear enough, especially for the business user, get confused when they have the pending workflow actions. What to do? What is that validate button? Why we need them? So we have done those cleanup. We have made it clear what is the event and what is in the description. We have one particular hyperlink. Click on that. It will take you directly to that particular change request task which has to be done. It is not just the object, it is the action which has to be done by the user. Also, we have the additional link. Click here for more details, right? Which takes you to the precise screen in the application where a user needs to perform the action. Yeah. Coming into the APIs, we introduced a new API to know about the object lock status. When there is a change request which is in progress, there are chances that the object can get into the lock state and they will not be able to know whether it is if you are sending in some update queries or anything, it will not be possible. So you can use this query call, get to know of about the object status, and then you can perform the further required actions to be done, like updating or reading those information. Also, from the Unison perspective, and also from the data marketplace, you can get to know how many data sets have been published to the data marketplace there. Use the data collection information to know what are all the linked data sets. So it is a two-way API calls there. When you know the marketplace information, you can see on the left-hand side, the search scope says the Facet ID as marketplace data collection. So we display that in the Unison page itself. So it gives you all the data sets which are linked to that particular data collection. On the right-hand side, if you can see, there is a filtering capability wherein the value is mentioned as unpublished. So you want to see all the data sets which are not published into the data marketplace at all. So you have the filter, the existing Unison query API, just the payload difference can give you the results which are required. That was about all on the 7301, and let's look at what came up in 731, the 10 days back release, which was a major release, and we had a bunch of features there as well. It supported upgrades, so you can upgrade directly from any of your 7.2x versions or 7.3, and you can come to 7.3.1. Here, major thing is on the Axon ADC integration enhancements, wherein earlier we brought in the data set and attributes to be created alone. If there is any change after it has been onboarded, we were not able to update it. It is a manual synchronization task, which was a tedious one. Now we are doing the update and delete, which is an automated process there. A bunch of improvements on the Unison search. There is also a DQ rule automation wherein the control is provided to the system level. Earlier, it used to be at the standard glossary level or the standard DQ rule level. Along with all these things, we also worked on the accessibility, which I covered in the last, accessibility towards the WCAG 2.1 AA standards. So let's look into each of those features, starting with the improvements on the Unison search, wherein we allowed the sorting capability. Earlier, the Unison grids, whatever we used to load, had the default sort by ID. Now with 731, you can choose, or the system admin can choose what should be the default sort for each of the facets. Glossaries, you can set it as last updated date and time, or a policy or a process, you can sort it with the alphabetical order and click on save default layout. This will be applicable to all the users in an application. Now, as you log in, individual users can also have the capability to override that particular reference. Then you can use the save layout option, where these were the fields which were present earlier, but the functionality we have extended. Individual users can also save as per their preference. With this preference setting, it allows them to get the search result at the top of the list. They don't have to scroll down when they have too many search results coming up in the Unison, and it is a faster access mechanism as well. Along with that, we also have the capability in the Unison to export the object stakeholder information. When you search for an object, when you want to get those information along with the stakeholders, no need to open the object. You can directly get those stakeholder information. You have the option with stakeholders or without stakeholders for each of those export formats there. Next, we have the data quality rule enhancements, wherein the system level, you can have the control for the DQ rule automation. As I was mentioning, earlier we had the glossary or the standard DQ rule level control only. If there are any attributes, if the system itself is not ready enough to participate in the data quality checks, it gives the overall lower figures with respect to the average data quality. So, and also if the system is undergoing some maintenance and if it is a downtime, you want to turn off all the scheduled data quality rules, local DQ rules. You had to go in each of the local data quality rule or use the bulk upload or the bulk update to turn it off. These were tedious processes. So what we introduced, when you control at this system level, toggling that will disable all the schedule rules, and also it will not create any local DQ rules further. If you keep it enabled, so all the previous standard DQ rules, whatever is defined, that can be created, and it also schedules the existing rules. Now, from the local DQ rule perspective, earlier the DQ rules were created without an attribute, but you were not able to update it, edit and update or assign a new attribute there. So what we have done is we have associated all the data quality, local data quality rules with respect to the data set. So attributes belonging to that data set will be available during the edit operation or the update operation. Along with that, we bring in the data set information in the Unison grid. This information was missing. Now, as we are doing the linking with the data set, we can bring in that information into the Unison as well. Moving into the Facet relationship or the enhancements. Earlier, the glossary X system relationship was something which was not customizable, or you were not able to use a custom relationship type. Now we have split that into two different relationships because of its own complexities and also the information which it brings in, like it is a strategic source for, or it has been used reference by. So this relationship has been split into two. Even if you go into the bulk upload relationships, there are two different templates, each one starting originating from their respective facets. Also from the drop-down configurations, you can set those values to two different relationships altogether. Then coming into the Axon EDC integration, which I was mentioning, a major change which we have done in 7.3.1. If there is any change to the business term or the data domain for a physical field in the catalog, and those physical fields are already onboarded into the Axon, we make the appropriate changes. If the glossary is changed from glossary 1 to glossary 2, the next nightly schedule one will update that glossary information in the Axon as well. Along with that, if it has been deleted, we mark the review status, the onboarded. You can see in the screenshot there, the review status, which is a new thing which has come up, which will be set as deleted. Earlier, it used to be as discovered, and the stakeholders do the curation of accept and reject. We still have that, but to identify or to get a notification, what is the attribute which is not having an associated physical field in the catalog, this is the status. And application notifications, we still continue to show for the data set or system stakeholders that the link has been removed from the catalog or the physical field is not existing. Also, the attribute description, what we are going to populate in the manual onboarding process, we directly pick from the glossary associated. You choose the glossary, the description automatically fills in. So this was available for auto onboarding. We have extended it to manual onboarding process as well. Continuing with the Axon EDC integration, we now allow the data sets status and the lifecycle can be configured at the system level. When you associate a data onboarding rule, you can say what should be the status of all the data sets which are being created. Attribute, we already have the curation option, so that is the reason we have brought in only the data set there. And you can also see the download and preview job what was in the same page, right? When you select download and preview, if there is a huge number of records to be brought in, it used to take around 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even more than that. Customer or the users were not able to stay on the same page to get that file downloaded. So what we have done is a backend job, and we give that notification once the job is completed, and if the user is able to view them, so we give the notification under the catalog section that preview file is available. You can click there. This file resides on the server side. This is available for almost 1 week or 10 days, and it will be removed. So you can download it. If you are not finding those files from the UI, you can again reapply for the or click on the preview, download and preview. Now on the auto assignment of the workflows, the manual change requests which were created involved some of the manual tasks like the stakeholders has to log into the application, choose the workflow, and then start the workflow. This used to take a delay of almost like more than a day sometimes. And when we had those capability for default change requests, why not for the manual change request? So we extended the capability, but while we're doing that, we also need to make sure on what basis you need to assign. So the control is given at the default workflows level based on the request type, whether it is a request for change or request for information. You can mention what is the default workflow. So system automatically assigns that workflow and it goes to the first step of the workflow. These automated processes gives a lot of improvements or the convenience for the stakeholders not to come into the application directly. They can start working on their action items. Finally, we'll talk about some of the accessibility and PAM updates which we covered in each of those releases. We started from 7.3 about WCAG 2.1 standards. We worked on multiple areas. We addressed most of the issues. The application is almost 70% compliant with respect to WCAG 2.1 AA standards. Success criteria, there is around 50 success criteria, out of which we almost reached the 30-35% there. So remaining 15 of them, whatever we are looking at, will be taken up in the coming releases. And WCAG 2.1 AA standards is very much required for all our federal customers or any of them looking at the screen reader capability or the especially challenged people using our applications. Either it could be at the reporting stage or day-to-day activities stages, right? They need this capability. And there are areas which have been called out. Either it could be navigation bar, drop-down menus. Across the application, we have covered it. So there is still a work which is going on. And it has been an effort in subsequent incremental releases. Coming into the PAM for all these 3 releases, you can see there is the OS supports, the latest 7.3.1 supports the RHEL 9.0. Also, we have dropped the support for CentOS 8.x, wherein the CentOS itself has come up with the end of support as well. Then EDC resources in each of the releases, starting with 7.3.0, where we supported Salesforce version 2 scanner. 7.3.0.1, we had TIBCO Spotfire, Amazon S3, and ADLS Gen 2 V2. Latest in 7.3.1, we had Snowflake Advanced Scanner. So whatever the platform or the EDC supports, 10.5p is supported with the Axon latest release as well. We also supported Active Directory AD, LDF Active Directory, a lightweight version, and eDirectory for Linux. There is something, a new LDAP, which we got a request, so we supported that. It is certified. So these were the quick highlights about the three releases which we spoke about. Any question and answers, we are open for it. And let's take the question and answers. Thank you.
Hi all, we have reached the Q&A part. Please post your questions.
So there is a question on how to access the trend and usage statistics in 730. So that will be accessible through the map views which are present in the Postgres DB. You can connect your reporting tools, either of the reporting tools like Power BI or Tableau or any of your choice to connect to our Postgres SQL DB, and you can connect to the map views. So there is a documentation section on how to access those macro tables. Any further questions? Any other things?
Do we have any questions? Thank you, Pradeep, for presenting today's webinar and all our panelists for joining us. We kindly request our audience to take up the survey and let us know your thoughts. Today's webinar will be available tomorrow on Success Portal under the Resources tab. With that, we will end today's webinar. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.